Hello, here's just a refresher on fractions before we move on with new things. First, I want to talk to you about what a fraction looks like. The top number of the fraction is called the numerator. The bottom number of the fraction is called the denominator. The denominator tells us how many parts the whole has been divided into. So I could have one whole square. The bottom part of the fraction is going to tell you how many equal parts that square has been divided into. One, two, three, four. So your denominator will always tell you that. But then the numerator is going to tell you how many parts of this square we're actually dealing with. One, two, three. We're dealing with 3/4 of this square. We're dealing with three out of the four parts of this square. That's understanding how to read the fraction. But sometimes we will need to make fractions equivalent fractions. If you look at the beginning of this word, it tells you what an equivalent fraction is. It reminds us of the word equal. So sometimes we have to make fractions that are equal to other fractions in order to be able to work together with that fraction, especially when we have to add or subtract. So, the trick to remembering what to do in making an equivalent fraction is to remember whatever function I do to the numerator or the top of this thing, I must do the same thing to the denominator, which is the bottom. So if I wanted to make an equivalent fraction, and make sure that my denominator winds up being 8, what times 4 will give me 8? Well, I could say that 2 times 4 will give me 8. But remember what I said about making equivalent fractions. Whatever I do to the denominator, I must also do to the numerator. So if I'm going to multiply this by 2 to get 8, then I have to be equal in what I do and multiply the 3 by 2 also. So I'm going to multiply both of these by 2. And so if I multiply the denominator, 4 times 2, I'm going to get 8. If I multiply the numerator, 3 times 2, I'm going to get 6. So the equivalent fraction, 3/4, will equal 6/8. That is making an equivalent fraction. It's very, very important to have equivalent fractions because if we add or subtract fractions, we must have like denominators. And the only way to make a like denominator is to make an equivalent fraction. So when I look at this particular problem, 3 plus 4, 3 plus 4, I'm sorry, 3/4. That's not 3 plus 4. Miss Roundtree's talking too quick. 3/4. 3/4 plus 1/2. When I look at this, they have different denominators. And so, in order for me to add these two fractions together, I've got to make the denominators the same. They have to have like denominators. Ding, ding, ding. This means I must make an equivalent fraction. So, I know that there are certain things that 4 and 2 have in common. Just like if I list the multiples of 4, I get 4, 8, 12. If I list the multiples of 2, I get 2, 4, and 6. I can already see that they have common multiples. And common multiples will also give me common factors. When I look at this right here, what I can see is that I can multiply 2 by 2 and get 4. And that will help me to get like denominators. So I'm just going to do this on both of them so that we can see what times 4 will give me 4. What times 4 will give me 4? Well, I can put 1. And since I multiplied the bottom one by 1, I also have to multiply my top by 1. Then I can look over here and say, what times 2 is going to give me 4 so that I can have that like denominator? Well, I know that 2 times 2 will give me 4, but if I multiply my denominator by 2, I have to multiply my numerator by 2. So here it is. 1 times 2 and 2 times 2. So I'm just going to go down just a little bit so I can write the new fraction or write the new number sentence. 3 times 1 equals 3. 4 times 1 equals 4. So I still have 3/4 plus 1 times 2, which equals 2, and 2 times 2, which equals 4. So now I have my new algorithm, 3/4 plus 2/4. And in adding fractions, we add the numerators only, and the denominator stays the same. That's why it's important that we have like denominators. So 3 plus 2 equals 5. The denominator stays the same, so that's 4. So right now, we're going to let our answer stand as 5/4. We will go through a little bit more later because anybody who knows anything about fractions knows that 5/4 is an improper fraction, but sometimes we need improper fractions. So I'm going to tell you when we're supposed to change them and when we can leave them to do other things. But right now, this is the end of this particular section. It was meant to be a review to get us up to speed, and let's go from there. Watch this again if you need some help.